All right, video number 3 is probably the most longest one that we're going to go here. We're going to create the eye sockets and create the eyes. And the easiest way I always found to do this is to just kind of pinch in. I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to kind of push and pinch in. Push and pinch in. And I don't need to go all the way through. I'm just pinching in a little bit to create a little bit of a divot here. And this is material I'm pushing in here is going to be for the nose. So as I'm pushing it in, I'm going to also kind of push that down to the bottom. And I'll reshape the nose more later. We'll talk about that on the next video. But I want to create the place for the eye socket. So just ignore how the nose is going to look right now. You can just kind of pinch in and then down. Because the nose is wider on the bottom, you can start to see it starts to make kind of a nose bump there. Okay? And that's creating the eye socket. There's the end of the period. I got everything I need here except for a cup of water. That's the other thing. I've got some extra clay. This is going to be like community clay. We're going to have a piece here in the middle of the table because you only need a little bit of it there, and everybody can kind of share out this extra block of clay. And the team captain can be responsible for that. I mean, see, I've already started to erase the guidelines here because that, and look how the chin fell down. That tends to happen. So you want to keep the chin pulling up, get your finger under there and then lift it up. And now we have a pretty good eye socket. Okay, the thing I forgot to do is get some water, so I'm going to go to the sink real quick and grab some water. And what you need with the water is because you're going to create a little bit of slip to stick the eyes on. So, there we go. So what I want to do is first make an eyeball. Actually, I'll make 2 eyeballs at once. And they're tiny. They're going to be tiny because we're going to expand them. So they're only going to be a piece of clay about that big. I could get me another piece about that big, about the size of a pea. That might be even a little bit too big. You'll know once you do it if it's too big, or ask somebody, does that look too big? Okay, yeah, a couple of pieces of clay like this, and try to get them about the same size, right? Good. And then roll those into a ball. So they're about the size of like a green pea. All right, and roll those into a ball. Now, I like to work symmetrically. I like to have my left hand do what my right hand does. If you're not that coordinated, you can, do it one at a time. Okay, so these are going to be the eyeballs, like this, are going to go in place. But they're not going to stay that spherical. I'm going to show you what to do. So what you're going to do is take some water and rub that into the eye socket, enough to create a layer of slip so it's sticky. And it kind of smooths it out in there. And then you place them. And you remember our rule of half, the pupil is the center of the eye, is halfway between the center and the outside. So this is pretty good. Roll them until they're in the right place, halfway. They look kind of funny right now. And then I'm going to press them down, but I'm going to press them down with 3 fingers. So I don't push in the center of this ball. I'm just pushing on the outside, and I'm kind of rotating my fingers as I do this. The reason why I would do this is I don't want to flatten them into like a pizza, a flat piece. I want to flatten them into kind of a dome shape. So when I do that, I'm going to keep the center right high. So you can see this is a little bit higher here than it is there. So I'm going to press them down. And what that does is it makes the eyeball a little bit bigger, and it turns a sphere into sort of a hemisphere, a half of a sphere. Okay. Now, if you pushed way flat on here, you can always kind of squeeze and pinch them up or start over again, and then double check to make sure that they didn't slide on you. They're halfway between the center of the face and here. Okay, that's step 1 for the eyes, is putting the eyeball. Step 2 for the eyes is making an eyelid, and that has several parts to it. So as I'm making an eyelid, I'm going to take a piece of clay about this big. I'm going to roll it out as a coil, so I'm just rolling it to make it kind of a wormy shape. And then I want to taper the ends of the coil, so I'm going to just push harder on the ends, so it becomes sort of this tapered coil shape. That's a little long. I'm going to break that one off. This is going to be the upper eyelid. So I make a coil, I taper the coil like this, so it's pointing on the ends, and then I curve it, and then I flatten it. So I make a coil, taper it, I curve it, I flatten it. You can kind of dip this in the water, or I can just get some more water here. So I made the coil, I keep repeating this until you get annoyed with it. I tapered it, I curved it, and then I flattened it. And then I put it right on top of the upper eyelid like that. And I'm going to do the same thing with the lower eyelid. And I realize I need some Q-tips too. We'll get some Q-tips in a minute. I'll tell you, this is a little bit longer video because the eyes are tricky. There's a lot of parts to it. There's 3 parts: eyeball, upper eyelid, lower eyelid. So what did I do? I made a coil. What did I do? I made a coil. I tapered it. Good English, Mr. Goodman. I tapered it. I curved it. Now this one's thinner. Can you see I made a smaller one for the lower eyelid? I curved it and then I flattened it. And I'm going to put it right in place. I might get this and dip this in the water. And when I do this, I'm covering up all the outside edge of that eyeball. So I don't see any outside edge of the eyeball. It almost looks like they've crossed here. That's okay. I'm going to smear connect that. Okay, now here's the most important part of this, is we want to smear connect it in a way that when you don't want to smear connect the eyelid to the eyeball. You want to connect the eyelid to the skin to make it look like it's all part of the skin. So you can even get a wet Q-tip here and just gently I'm barely touching the clay. I'm just, with a little bit of water, it smear connects the bottom eyelid to the bottom of the below the eye, and the upper eyelid to the, now this gets kind of gummy after a while. There's that other bell. And you can see it starts to make kind of a realistic human eye. All right, and if you have any little low spots, like I have a little low spot there, I can just put a little bit of clay in that low spot. And then press it, because it's wet and sticky there, it's going to stick. And then just to smear connect it, because my fingers are too thick to get in there, I'm going to use the Q-tip to smear connect it. Smooth it out. Okay, so you can do this on any low places that you want to fill in on your face. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the other eye, but you don't need to watch that. You got the idea. Get it? And come back to the next video to show how you do the mouth.